Go to lunch in the Jewish community. I won't tell on the bros for the immunity. Paying feed them, that shit ain't gonna ruin me. I'm the only one now let outdo me.
The most important business lesson my grandfather ever taught me happened when I was 15. I'd just gotten my first real job working at a grocery store, and I was excited to tell him about it. $12 an hour felt like real money. His response shocked me. He didn't congratulate me. He looked concerned. $12 an hour, he said slowly. So they've put a price on your time. They've told you exactly what you're worth to them. And you accepted it. I didn't understand what he meant. Wasn't getting paid for work how everything worked? Wasn't this how you made money? No, he said. This is how you trade your life for money. There's a difference between making money and trading your time for money. You need to understand that difference, or you'll spend your whole life as someone else's employee, making them rich while you stay comfortable, but never wealthy. That conversation changed how I thought about work, money, and wealth. It took me years to fully understand what he meant, but once I did, my entire financial trajectory changed. I want to share what my grandfather taught me about why selling your time is a trap and what you should do instead. The fundamental problem with selling your time is mathematical. There are only 24 hours in a day. Even if you work every waking hour, there's a hard ceiling on how much money you can make. If you make $50 an hour and work 80 hours per week, you can make about $200,000 per year before taxes. That's your absolute maximum, and it requires working yourself into an early grave. Meanwhile, someone who owns the business you work for has no such limitation. They can have 10 employees, 100 employees, 1,000 employees, all generating profit. Their income isn't limited by their personal time because they're not selling time. They're capturing value from systems and other people's labor. My grandfather put it bluntly, employees have income ceilings. Owners have income potential. This seems obvious when stated plainly, but most people never think about it. They accept that trading time for money is just how the world works. They focus on getting raises, promotions, better hourly rates, all of which just adjust the price of their time without changing the fundamental equation. The employee mindset is optimization within constraints. How can I make more per hour? How can I work more hours? How can I get promoted to a higher paying position? These aren't bad questions, but they're all still operating within the framework of selling time. The owner mindset is different. It asks, how can I create value that isn't tied to my personal time? How can I build systems that generate income whether I'm working or not? How can I capture value from assets, intellectual property, other people's labor, or automated systems? My grandfather escaped employee thinking in his 30s. He'd been working in someone else's textile business, getting paid for his time. He was good at it, got raises, was respected. But he realized he was building someone else's wealth, not his own. So he started his own business. At first, he was still trading time for money, just for himself instead of an employer. He worked brutal hours, but crucially, he was building something. He was creating systems, hiring people, developing processes that could run without his constant involvement. Within 5 years, he had employees handling most daily operations. He was still involved, but his income was no longer directly tied to his hours worked. He'd broken the time for money equation. This is the pattern I've seen in everyone in my family and community who built real wealth. They all started by selling their time, almost everyone does, but they all transition to ownership, systems, and leverage. Let me be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying jobs are bad or that being an employee is shameful. Jobs are often necessary starting points. They provide stability, learning opportunities, capital accumulation, and skill development. My grandfather worked for others before starting his business. I worked jobs in my 20s. What I'm saying is that if your goal is wealth, not just income, but actual wealth, you cannot stay in employee mindset. You cannot sell your time forever and expect to become wealthy. The math doesn't work. There are exceptions, of course. Some professions pay so much that you can save and invest significant amounts and become wealthy that way. High-end lawyers, doctors, investment bankers, software engineers at major tech companies. Some of these people do become wealthy while remaining employees. But even then, the wealthy ones are those who invest their high salaries into assets that generate passive income. They're using their employee income as a bridge to ownership. They're buying real estate, starting businesses, investing in stocks and funds. They're not just spending their high salaries on consumption. The ones who remain purely employees, even at high income levels, often end up on what my grandfather called the golden treadmill, making a lot of money but spending it all on an expensive lifestyle. High income but no wealth, one job loss or health crisis away from serious problems despite decades of high earnings. My uncle was a successful doctor. He made excellent money, but he understood he was still trading time for money. If he stopped seeing patients, the income stopped. So he invested heavily in real estate and eventually owned a surgery center with other doctors. The real estate and business ownership created wealth. The medical practice created income. When he retired at 60, he stopped practicing medicine, but his income barely dropped because the investments and business continued generating money. That's the difference between selling time and owning assets. The transition from employee to owner mindset requires several mental shifts that my grandfather drilled into me. The first shift is understanding that your time is finite and precious. When you're young, time feels infinite. You can always work more hours, take extra shifts, hustle harder. But time is actually your most limited resource. Every hour you sell for money is an hour you can't get back. This doesn't mean never work for others. It means be strategic about it. Use employment to learn skills, build capital, develop expertise, and make connections that will help you transition to ownership. Don't just work for a paycheck. Work with the explicit goal of building capabilities that will let you eventually stop selling your time. When I worked jobs in my 20s, I wasn't just collecting paychecks. I was learning how businesses operated, developing skills I'd need later, saving capital for investments, and building relationships. Every job was preparation for ownership, not a permanent station. The second shift is from thinking about income to thinking about equity and assets. Employees think, how much will I get paid? Owners will think, what will I own? When you take a job, you exchange time for wages. When you start or invest in a business, you acquire equity that has ongoing value. When you buy real estate, you acquire an asset that generates income and appreciates. When you create intellectual property, you own something that can generate royalties. Equity and assets can be sold, borrowed against, passed to your children, and generate income without your labor. Wages disappear the moment you stop working. My grandfather asked me when I was 20, would you rather make $100,000 per year for 40 years or build something worth $4 million? The lifetime wages are the same, but the outcomes are completely different. The wage earner has income that stops when they stop working. The asset owner has wealth that persists, grows, generates ongoing income, and can be leveraged or sold. The third shift is understanding leverage. Employees have no leverage. They trade 1 hour of time for 1 hour of pay. Owners use leverage constantly, financial leverage, using borrowed money to buy assets. 100,000 of your money buys 500,000 of real estate with a mortgage. You benefit from appreciation and income on the full 500,000. Labor leverage, hiring people whose work generates more value than you pay them. You keep the difference. 10 employees, each generating 50,000 per year in profit after their salaries, means you make 500,000 while they do the work. Technology leverage, creating systems or software that serve thousands or millions of customers without proportional increases in your time. Write code once, sell it infinite times. Network leverage, building relationships and reputation that bring opportunities to you rather than you having to hunt for them. People with strong networks get deal flow, partnerships, and opportunities that others never see. Employees typically have access to none of these leverage types. Owners build their entire wealth through them. The fourth shift is from risk avoidance to risk management. Employees minimize risk by trading freedom for security, regular paychecks, benefits, predictable schedules. This feels safe but creates a different kind of risk, complete dependence on one employer, no control over your income, and limited wealth-building potential. Owners accept more immediate risk, irregular income, personal liability, possibility of failure, but manage it through diversification, insurance, cash reserves, and skill development. The upside potential compensates for the risk. My grandfather's view was that employee security is largely an illusion. You can be laid off, fired, or made obsolete at any time. The safe paycheck can disappear instantly. At least as an owner, you control more variables and have more options when things go wrong. So how do you actually make this transition? How do you stop selling your time and start building wealth through ownership? The path my grandfather taught me and that I've followed has several stages. Stage 1 is skilled employment. Get a job that pays well enough to save meaningful amounts, teaches valuable skills, and ideally gives you insight into how businesses work. This stage isn't about career fulfillment or finding your passion. It's about capital accumulation and skill development. During this stage, live below your means and save aggressively. The money you save is your ticket to ownership. Don't waste it on consumption. Every dollar saved is a dollar that can be invested in assets or businesses. Also during this stage, pay attention to how the business actually works. How does it make money? What are the margins? How are decisions made? Who are the customers? And why do they buy? Most employees never think about these questions, but you should be constantly studying the business model. Stage 2 is initial investments. Before you can quit your job, you need assets generating income. For most people, this means real estate or starting a side business while employed. Real estate is accessible and proven. Save for a down payment, buy a rental property, make sure it cash flows. Then another, then another. Eventually, the rental income can replace your job income. This might take 5 years, 10 years, or longer depending on your market and how aggressively you invest. Side businesses are another route. Start something while you still have job income to cover your living expenses. Initially, the side business generates small amounts. Over time, if you're strategic and persistent, it can grow to match, then exceed, your job income. My grandfather did both. He worked a job while saving every possible dollar. He bought a small rental property. He started doing textile work on the side. Eventually, the side business and rental income combined to exceed his job income. That's when he quit. Stage 3 is full-time ownership. Once your investments or business generate enough income to live on, you can leave employment. This is terrifying but essential. You can't build serious wealth while selling most of your time to an employer. This doesn't mean quit recklessly. You need sufficient cash reserves, proven income from your assets or business, and a clear plan. But at some point, you must make the leap from employee to owner. The moment you make this transition, your potential changes completely. Now all your time and energy goes into building your own wealth, not someone else's. The income ceiling disappears. You can scale, hire, invest, and compound without limits. Stage 4 is scaling and compounding. Once you're full-time in ownership, you can really accelerate. You reinvest profits into more assets. You use the equity in existing assets to buy more. You hire people to handle operations so you can focus on growth and strategy. You compound aggressively. This is where wealth really builds. The first 5 or 10 years of ownership might not produce dramatic wealth, but years 10 through 30 are where compound returns create serious money. You're not just earning income, you're building enterprise value, equity, and compounding assets. My grandfather followed this exact path, employed until his early 30s, then small-scale owner, then full-time business owner and investor. By his 50s, he was wealthy. By his 70s, he was very wealthy. And it all stemmed from that initial decision to stop selling his time and start building ownership. Let me address some common objections. But I need the steady income from my job. I can't risk starting a business or investing in real estate. Most people do need employment income initially. Use it strategically to build toward ownership. Live below your means, save aggressively, start small with investments or side businesses while maintaining employment. The transition doesn't have to be sudden. Not everyone can own a business or invest in real estate. What if I don't have those skills? Skills can be learned. My grandfather came to America barely speaking English with no business experience. He learned. The question isn't whether you currently have the skills, it's whether you're willing to develop them. What if I fail? You probably will fail at some point. Most first businesses fail. Many investments lose money. The key is failing small while you're learning. My grandfather failed multiple times before building lasting success, but the eventual successes far outweighed the failures. Also, staying an employee forever is its own failure. The failure to build wealth and freedom. I'm too old to make this transition. I'm 45 with a family and mortgage. My grandfather started his business at 32 with a family. Others started in their 40s and 50s. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow. Start investing in rental real estate while keeping your job. Start a side business. Build ownership gradually. The transition can take years if needed. If you're 45 now and do nothing, you'll be 65 still selling your time. If you start building ownership now, you could be financially independent by 60 or 65. My cousin worked as an accountant for a large firm. Good salary, stable job. But he understood he was selling time. While working full-time, he bought small rental properties, one per year, for 6 years. By year 7, rental income exceeded his job income. He quit, managed his properties full-time, and bought more aggressively. 20 years later, he owns 37 properties and is genuinely wealthy. Another friend worked in IT, building websites on the side for small businesses. Eventually, the side business grew enough that he quit and did it full-time. Hired developers, built an agency, sold it 10 years later for several $1 million. My sister worked as a teacher, knowing she'd never get wealthy on teacher salary. She invested aggressively in index funds, lived frugally, and bought rental properties. After 15 years, her investment income exceeded her teaching income. She retired from teaching at 45, fully financially independent. None of these people were geniuses. They were ordinary people who understood the math of selling time versus owning assets. And they acted on that understanding consistently. The common pattern is employment provides initial capital and skills, then assets take over as the primary wealth engine. Employment is the launching pad, not the destination. When you make this shift, it changes how you think about everything. As an employee, you think in terms of permission and approval. Can I take vacation? Will my boss approve this? As an owner, you think in terms of trade-offs and consequences. If I take time off, what's the impact? If I make this investment, what's the return? You have freedom, but also full responsibility. When I left my last job to focus on my businesses and investments, the psychological shift was immediate. No more asking permission, performance reviews, salary negotiations. Just direct correlation between value created and money made. It was terrifying at first, but within months, it felt impossible to imagine going back. My grandfather used to say, an employee trades freedom for security. An owner trades security for freedom. Most people choose security and wonder why they never feel free. I'll close with the most important thing my grandfather taught me about this. The decision to stop selling your time isn't a one-time event. It's a continuous practice of choosing ownership over employment, assets over wages, equity over salary. Even after you've made the transition, there will be tempting employment opportunities. Someone might offer you a high salary to come work for them. It will be tempting because employment feels easier. Someone else worries about the big decisions. You just do your job and collect a paycheck. You have to keep choosing ownership, keep investing in assets, keep building businesses, keep developing systems that generate income without your constant labor. Keep thinking like an owner, not an employee. This is how wealth is built. Not through wages, no matter how high, not through promotions, no matter how prestigious, but through ownership of assets that appreciate and generate income whether you're working or not. Or your time is finite. You can sell it for wages and be comfortable, or you can invest it in building ownership and become wealthy. The choice is always yours, but the math is clear. Stop selling your time, start building ownership. Think like an owner, not an employee. Do this consistently for 10, 20, 30 years, and you'll build wealth that your employment-minded peers cannot imagine. That's what my grandfather taught me. That's what I've practiced. That's what I'm teaching my children. And that's what I believe anyone can do if they understand the difference between trading time for money and building systems that generate money regardless of time spent. The question isn't whether you can do this. The question is whether you will. Whether you'll make the mental shift from employee thinking to owner thinking. Whether you'll sacrifice short-term security for long-term freedom. Whether you'll spend the next decade building something that lasts rather than just collecting paychecks. Let me give you one final framework my grandfather used to evaluate opportunities. He called it the time freedom test. Does this scale beyond my personal hours? Will it generate income if I stop working? Can I sell or transfer it? A job fails all three. You can't scale beyond your hours. Income stops when you stop. You can't sell your job. Rental real estate passes all three. It generates income regardless of your time. It scales through multiple properties. You can sell properties for lump sums. A business with employees and systems passes all three. It can run without you. It scales through people and systems. You can sell the business. Using this framework, evaluate everything. Your wages should become down payments on real estate, capital to start businesses, investments in stocks. You're using time for money income to buy your way out of needing to sell time. This is exactly what I did. I worked jobs in my 20s, saved aggressively, and invested every dollar in rental properties and eventually businesses. The rental income started small, but grew. The business income started at zero, but grew. The investment income compounded. By my mid-30s, ownership income exceeded employment income. By my late 30s, I'd stopped selling my time entirely. This didn't happen through luck or special skills. It happened through understanding the difference between selling time and owning assets, and consistently choosing ownership. Every person I know who built significant wealth followed similar paths. They started in different places, high-paying professions, working-class jobs with family help, with nothing. But they all transitioned from selling time to owning assets. And every person who remained stuck financially, even those with high incomes, failed to make this transition. They optimized their hourly rate, climbed corporate ladders, got impressive titles and salaries, but they kept selling time. When they stopped working, the money stopped. The saddest cases are high-income professionals who made millions over their careers but own almost nothing. Doctors, lawyers, executives making $300,000 to $500,000 per year, but spending it all. Big houses, expensive cars, private schools, luxury vacations. They're rich in income but poor in assets. They can't retire because they own nothing that generates income. One health crisis or job loss and everything collapses. My grandfather called this the doctor trap. Making so much you feel rich, spending it all on looking rich but never building wealth. The irony is that someone making $100,000 per year who saves and invests aggressively can end up wealthier than someone making $500,000 who spends it all. The person making less but building ownership will eventually have passive income exceeding the high earner's salary. The high earner will work until they're forced to stop, then live on inadequate savings. The owner will retire whenever they want, with income continuing indefinitely. This is why thinking about income levels misses the point entirely. What matters isn't how much you make per year. What matters is how much of that income converts into income-producing assets. Are you building ownership or funding consumption? Someone making $50,000 per year who invests $20,000 is building more wealth than someone making $200,000 who invests nothing. The second person has higher quality of life now. The first person will have higher quality of life in 20 years and forever after. My grandfather lived modestly despite growing wealth because he understood this completely. Every dollar spent on luxury was a dollar not working for him. Every dollar invested in assets was a dollar that would generate more dollars forever. He'd rather own 3 rental properties generating passive income than drive a luxury car. He'd rather have a stock portfolio throwing off dividends than take expensive vacations. He'd rather build business equity than live in a mansion. This wasn't deprivation. He lived comfortably and enjoyed life. But he drew a clear line between enough and excess. Enough was fine. Excess was wasting money that should be building wealth. I follow the same principle. I live well, but not extravagantly. I have enough house, enough car, enough everything. But I don't chase luxury, because every dollar chasing luxury is a dollar not building ownership. And ownership is freedom. Luxury is just consumption. The path forward from where you are now is clear. Evaluate your current situation honestly. How much of your income comes from selling time versus owning assets? For most people, it's 100% from selling time. Start changing that ratio. Take 10% of your income and invest it in assets. Real estate, stocks, starting a small business, anything that passes the time freedom test. Next year, make it 15%. The year after, 20%. As your asset income grows, it funds buying more assets. Eventually, asset income exceeds employment income. That's when you can stop selling time entirely if you choose. This might take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, depending on your income level and how aggressively you invest. But the direction is clear and the math is certain. Ownership compounds, time selling doesn't. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. Stop selling it cheaply. Start investing it in building wealth that will serve you, your children, and your grandchildren. That's the lesson. Now the question is whether you'll actually apply it.